Alright, this is the first of a series of videos I'm making about the second half of section R7. And section R7 deals with radicals. In the first half of R7, we've seen what a radical is, we've seen how to simplify radicals. We've also seen how to add, subtract, and multiply, divide radicals. So the second half I'm going to start now is going to be about expressing radicals as rational powers, or expressing rational powers as radicals. It can go both ways. So I'm going to give you a little bit of feel for what this is going to look like. So if I said, and you probably recall, the cube root of a squared. If I say cube root of a squared, you recall that when we were trying to simplify this, essentially we did power divided by exponent. Power divided by index. Of course, in this case, we cannot simplify really because the power is smaller than the index. But what we're going to see now is we're going to use the fact that we used to write it as power divided by index to rewrite this as a rational power. And I have the power on top and the index at the bottom. Power over index. So this is what we will be doing in this second half of this section R7. Now let's take a look at another example here. If I say fifth root of x to the third, fifth root of x to the third, I can rewrite that as a rational power. And I'm going to say, based on what we've done up here, I'm going to say x to a fractional power. Now, which one? I do power over index. So 3 over 5. So that's how we are going to turn any radical into a rational power. And by rational power, we mean fractional power. But keep in mind that not only are we going to be required to know how to do that, but we also need to know how to turn any rational power into a radical. So I'm going to get one example here. So we get a sense of what that's going to look like. So if I say 2 to the power 7 over 11, some questions are going to require that we turn this into a radical. So this is essentially a fractional power, or if you want, a rational power. So I can turn this into a radical. And in order for me to do so, I have to remember that the top is the power and the bottom is the index. So I'm going to say that's the radical. Now the index is the bottom. That's going to be 11. 11th root of 2 to the power is 7. So 11th root of 2 to the power 7. another example, if I say x to the 1/2, how do I turn that into a fractional? How do I turn this fractional power into a radical? I'm going to say this is radical. Now keep in mind, this is the index, the denominator, and this is the power, the numerator. So that's going to be square root of x to the power, the first power. Now, of course, you remember from here that when you do square root, when the index is 2, we don't need to write it. So that's going to be just square root this way. And you also remember x to the power 1 is the same as x. So that's an easier way to write it. So what did we just see here? We just saw that if you want to write the nth root, say, of x to the power p, you can rewrite this as a fractional power. You can rewrite this as a fractional power. But before I show you how to write it as a fractional power, as we did on the right hand side here, I'm going to make a little remark here. So note with me that this power that you have inside P is also the same as having it outside P, this way. So it will be the same as having it outside there. Now, whether you have the P inside or the P outside, it's one and the same thing. So when you have that kind of radical, how do you turn that into a fractional power? Well, it's going to be x to the power of a fraction. Now, the index goes down, the denominator, and the power goes in the numerator. So that's how we turn this into a fractional power. In much of the same way, much of the same manner, you can go the other way around. You can turn this fractional power into a radical this way or that way. It depends on the problem. The particular kind of problem you'll be solving is actually going to ask either to get one or the other.